Avery, whose show is this? And we're live. Welcome, everybody, here to the Lakers Lounge Podcast. I'm Anthony Irwin, Senior Lakers Insider and lead Lakers content creator for Offside. And today on the show, it's going to be me. It's going to be you. It's going to be your topics, your questions, your comments. I mean, some of my own also as well that I will gather over the course of the show too. But yeah, for the most part, you guys are going to be guiding at least the second half of this show and letting us kind of go through there. The plan here, I found some numbers last night that I've tweeted about and want to kind of contextualize a little bit, discuss with you guys here on the show. I also found, some of the quotes after last game. I don't know if I would call them concerning, but they certainly didn't exactly inspire a ton of confidence that the Lakers understood what happened in that game. So we'll talk about that. And then, like I said, you guys are going to take over what is left of the show from there on out. So let's go ahead and dive on in. Whenever I find the swoosh thing, it was just switch. There's. All right. Quick reminder, please hit that subscribe button wherever it is that you guys find the show, specifically here on YouTube. If you're looking for it on YouTube, you can always go to youtube.com/@LakersLounge to find the show there. When you guys find it, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button on all these videos. I usually kind of aim for like 100 likes in these things, at least initially. And then I'm trying to grow this thing. So, if we could climb above 100 likes, that'd be even better. And it doesn't cost you anything. All you got to do is like. That's it. And so hit that button, hit the share button, all that stuff. And then if you guys are listening to this in the morning via podcast, please hit that subscribe button wherever it is that you get them. Preferably Odyssey. I don't really care. All right, let's go ahead and dive on in, though, to I'm actually going to start with the stats and allow them to kind of tell a bit of a story to the Lakers' losses. So I tweeted this out earlier, and I'm going to pull it up again. In games that the Lakers have won this season, they have given up 18.3 points per game off of turnovers. In their losses, they have given up 29.2 points off of turnovers per game. And now look, the 18.3 number, that's about league average. You would like for in wins, that number to be lower than league average, but you know what? This is probably part of why they haven't really blown teams out, is because those turnovers and the points off of those turnovers are keeping teams in the game. The Lakers are a dreadful defensive transition team. They're slow, and they're slow under the best of circumstances. So if you add into the mix them literally like meandering back on defense, they just really struggle in that aspect of the game. And when you turn the ball over, chances are you're going to be trying to get back in transition. So that is, in wins, the Lakers are giving up 18.3 points per game. I would like for that number to come down as well. The number that really, really is catches the eye is that 29.2 point per game number in their losses. And that, to me, like a lot of the Lakers' losses this year, they don't have a ton of losses in general. They're 15-5. But the losses that the Lakers have this year, Atlanta was a blowout, Portland was a blowout, OKC was a blowout, last night was a blowout. I'm trying to think of their fifth loss, but at least 4 out of the 5 losses that they have so far this season, blowout losses. And now they asked Austin last night about the Lakers' interest in kind of fighting back when they don't necessarily have it. He pointed to the game against Memphis where they were down 14 or so at halftime and then were able to climb back into the game and eventually win it. So they have come back and they have fought back. But I do think this team has a bit of a tendency at this point to see that they don't have it and go, well, Luka, you want to try to shoot us out of it, or shoot us back into it? And I think Luka is sometimes almost too interested in trying to shoot them back into it. We'll talk a little bit more about Luka's comments after the game and some of his teammates' comments after the game in the next segment. But yeah, the turnovers and the points off of those turnovers and the poor transition defense, that keeps teams in games, and that takes you out of games. That ends games. And for me, I just think, part of it is personnel. They are a slow team and they are not playing, like Vanderbilt isn't playing. So he's one of their better athletes. Marcus Smart is hurt. He's one of the guys who are, at least theoretically better at getting back in on defense. Lucas, they also have a lot of guys who complain to referees on calls, or calls that they feel they didn't get. So you'll have plays where Luka is well behind the play because he's yelling at a referee, or LeBron is obviously has this tendency as well. Austin does too, to I think a little bit lesser extent than those other guys. But yeah, overall, and then the guys who you would hope would get back, like Rui Hachimura, like he doesn't sprint too often. DeAndre Ayton is more of a loafer than he is a sprinter. It's a slow team that likes to play slow, and when another team plays fast on them, they just don't really have, or they don't really like to get to that next gear, or try to even get to that next gear. And you see numbers like this where they really struggle in transition. The other number that I tweeted out last night that some people, one person in particular, really, really didn't like. But yeah, I think this is very small sample size so far. But you look at the 3-man combinations here. So the first one that has played the most together so far has been Luka, Rui, and Austin. And this is of the players that we're kind of talking about here. Ayton is not leaving the starting group, so that doesn't really matter to bring him into this either. But Luka, Rui, and Austin so far, they've played 278 minutes together so far. Offensive rating of 123.1, defensive rating of 114.6, good for a net rating of 8.4. The next one here, Marcus Smart, Luka, and Austin. They have played 143 minutes together so far. In those minutes, they are roughly the same offensive efficiency, 123.5. The defense gets significantly better. That drops down to 99.3. And their net rating jumps up to 24.2. And then the LeBron, Luka, and Austin group. Now they've only played 75 minutes so far this season. So this is extremely small sample size. And it has gotten better of late, I believe. They were a minus 16 at one point. Now they're down to only a minus 7.9. Not only, but 117.6 offensive rating, 125.5 defensive rating. And like, to me, it's just a matter of, like, I'm going to try to pull up the 4-man lineup data here for the Lakers, where you might see the differences between, LeBron with Rui versus, LeBron in the starting group. Well, I don't even think he's really played very many minutes with Smart, actually. So let's see. And then let's see. Smart. Let's see if that comes up. LeBron, Smart. All right. So, yeesh, this is interesting. The LeBron, Smart, Luka, and Austin group, they've only played 6 minutes so far this season. Now, again, LeBron has been mostly out of the lineup so far, so that makes it difficult. And seeing as Smart oftentimes enters the game for LeBron makes it impossible for that group to play together. So I'm not even going to look at the numbers. 6 minutes is not anywhere near enough lineup data to really draw any kind of conclusions off of. But LeBron, Luka, Rui, and Austin, they've played 75 minutes together. That's 112.8 offensive rating. That isn't anywhere near good enough offensively because they aren't going to be very good defensively. 122 defensive rating. That's a negative 9.2 in those minutes that those guys are playing together, or over the course of a game while those guys are playing together. And that's just the starting group is just really struggling. We'll look at the 5-player lineups: LeBron, Ayton, Doncic, Rui, and Reaves together so far this season. 49 minutes together, offensive rating of 109.9, nowhere near high enough, and a defensive rating of 118.9, which we knew that defense was going to struggle. That is a negative 9, net rating, over the courses of those games. It's just it's a team, it's a unit that we knew was flawed going in, and it has been flawed. It hasn't looked very good, and it's a bummer because the Lakers so far this season have basically looked at those minutes while LeBron and Austin and Luka have been on the court, and they're like having to survive those minutes. And those are minutes where you should be blowing the doors off of teams when your 3 best players are on the court. So that is concerning. It's not befuddling because we kind of knew that this specific issue was coming. And it just kind of screams at, like, even if it isn't Smart that, finishes the season as that 5th starter, I think eventually they're going to need a trade for their 5th starter. I've never felt more strongly about this than after last night's game, that they need to use that 1st-round pick, and they need to use their expiring money. You might have to, sacrifice a Dutiro, or you might have to give up, you're probably going to have to give up Dalton as well. Might even have to give up Rui to get that starter. But the Lakers are going to have to go out and I think get that 5th starter that links up that unit so that you aren't merely hoping to survive the beginnings of games before you get any kind of roster balance between, your offensive roster, your offensive lineup, and your defensive lineup. So that's something that the Lakers are, again, it's something that this is very quickly going to feel like kind of beating a dead horse because we've talked about it a ton already or so early on in the season, but it doesn't make it any less important that the Lakers are just not very good with their most talented players on the court together. And they need to figure out a way to make those guys better together. And, I think it involves adding athleticism to that group and adding give a bleep to that group that, I'm sorry, Rui just doesn't really have. So those are the stats that I'm kind of, keeping an eye on. The transit or the points off of turnovers one is gonna have to turn. And part of that is taking better care of the basketball. Part of that is hustling back on defense and not whining to referees as often as those guys whine to referees. Part of that is, a better understanding of transition principles and stuff like that I think the Lakers have been very inconsistent with so far this season. Just overall, it's a team that again keeps teams in games by way of those points off of turnovers, and takes themselves out of games by way of all of those points off of turnovers in their 5 losses so far this season. I want to talk really quickly about the quotes coming after last night's game. So the 3 players whose quotes caught my eye coming off of the game were Austin Reaves, Rui Hachimura, and Luka Doncic. And they told 3 very different stories, which it's kind of interesting. So like the post-game scrum and stuff like that, like those scrums, they take place after, the team has talked about the game and stuff. And, normally there's a little bit more unification on, messaging after that game. So it was really interesting to see 3 guys tell 3 different stories about the game. First, Austin, tells the media in his post-game scrum, this is one that we kind of want to just flush and move on from. The problem with this one was that we didn't play very hard, and no, that can't happen, and no, that shouldn't happen. And in games that we play at least as hard as the other team, We like our chances, and if we don't, then we open ourselves up to this. Um, JJ Redick kind of echoed that sentiment as well, right? He talked about how if the Lakers, if you play against that team and you don't play very hard, you're going to get embarrassed. So that to me is what JJ Redick probably kind of talked about after the game, is what I'm taking from that exchange. Now, uh, sometimes what happens is the media will have their own idea of what happened in a game, and they'll ask guys about what the media felt they saw in that game. And so the next guy that kind of came to mind in this regard was Luka. And credit to Luka, he said that he turned the ball over 9 times, and that can't happen, and that this game was on him. Like I half joked in Slack that that was the worst 38-11 performance I've ever seen, from any player ever. When you talk about, like, it's not just the turnovers, it's not just the 9 turnovers. I just thought Luka kind of, like, by doubling and tripling and quadrupling down on Luka ball, I thought he really kind of took all of the other Lakers kind of out of the game, out of the rhythm of the game. And early in the first quarter and for much of the first half, I thought the Lakers, like, their offense was too overwhelming. There was good ball movement, there was good player movement, and Phoenix didn't really know what to do with the Lakers. You had also Luka's shot making, which obviously also helped. But like the I thought, Austin kind of talked, and JJ Redick kind of talked about the lack of effort. I actually thought that the effort dipped once the Lakers started playing a little bit too much Luka ball. And so, the Luka says it's on him, that the turnovers were bad and that he blames himself for the game. That's great to hear. But the next half of his little statement there also, like, didn't land with me, because he was like, yeah, I should have just kept scoring, which, what? Like, I didn't um I I guess you don't turn the ball over if you shoot, which I guess inherently he's correct in that regard. But to me, the problem wasn't just the turnovers, it was the usage rate. It was how frequently he had the ball in his hands and for how long he had the ball in his hands in that game, and how infrequently we saw LeBron possessions or Austin possessions, or some combination of Luka LeBron and Luka Austin, or LeBron Austin. Actually, I thought LeBron Austin minutes were mostly fine, because those guys do get each other involved in the game. So, yeah, my problem with Luka's sentiment there is, like, we agreed about, like, what the problem was last night. We just completely disagree on how to solve that problem, where he's like, "Yeah, I just gotta shoot more. I should have shot more." It's like, no, you should have passed earlier in the possession more, so that more guys would be involved. And, to this point, Rui Hachimura was asked about, the fact that he only got 1 shot, and he went so far as to say, like, I don't even really remember having the ball in this game. And he said how when the Lakers offense looks their best, the ball is moving, multiple guys are touching the basketball, multiple guys are attacking, and they're this multi-dimensional, they present this multi-dimensional attack that can, look, I've used the term overwhelm teams. It has overwhelmed teams, and some of these teams are like good defenses. So, yeah, the fact that there were 3 different messages coming off of this one, and the fact that, that there is that disconnect. Look, chemistry has been excellent with this team all season. I'm not at all concerned about, I'm not gonna go so far as to say that the reactions to one game are going to completely change my opinion about the chemistry in that locker room. I would never go that far. But I do think that you know, the takeaway from this game, and it'd be curious, they didn't practice today. But it would be curious. I would love to hear what those guys think about that game. Now having the opportunity to kind of sit on, either the tape of the game or, they whenever they have a chance to kind of watch that game together or discuss that game together, how they might feel about that game, how they might feel about the quotes about the game. That would be something I would have really liked to hear about today. And we have an opportunity tomorrow. The Lakers, I believe, will practice tomorrow in some shape or form. And if they do, I'm looking forward to some of the quotes now that they've had some time to kind of digest the thorough ass kicking that the Phoenix Suns served them last night. All right. Let's go ahead and dive on into some of your guys' questions. I didn't get any questions on the iTunes mailbag. I haven't gotten any questions on the iTunes mailbag for like a month. Just so you know, Avery's allowance is completely dependent on the number of 5-star reviews that we get on iTunes. And this means she's not going to get an allowance for last month. So if she's really, she's going to be really pissed about this. And just so you know, you've made a adorable 6-year-old girl really upset by not putting in those 5-star reviews. I'm kidding, obviously. Or am I? But yeah, let's go ahead and dive on into some of your guys' questions. You're feeling nobody. You give her allowance anyway. Actually, Avery doesn't really get an allowance. She's a little too young for it. I do think that over the next couple of years, in this next year or so, we'll start giving her chores, and she'll get an allowance based off of her ability and the consistency with which she does those chores. But for now, it's dependent on those iTunes reviews and iTunes 5-star reviews specifically. And if I don't see increases in that, in the frequency there, no donuts for Avery, and it's all your fault. Let's go ahead and move on. Oh man. I hope one day like Avery just randomly stumbles upon this podcast. Like, what was Dad saying about me? It was your fault I didn't get an allowance. All right. First question here from Twitter. I'm going to roll with. This comes from @Bashir41096. Thoughts on the latest Giannis slime moves with him deleting all his Bucks related posts in his last tweet that's up being a picture of Kobe. We got other questions, I'm sure, about that from actually my wine allowance is way down. I'm not drinking during the week anymore. So I've debated, like, do I want to stick with the typical bottle that I would drink on my normal like glass or so a night? Or do I want to take some of the money that I was spending on that bottle as frequently as I was buying it and apply it to better wine? Decisions. We'll see. But no, we have, another, comment here. Omar Harris, I'm sorry. Did y'all see Giannis deleting all of his pictures on Instagram pertaining to the Bucks? Y'all think we got a chance for Giannis ? We got, I'm sure plenty of these questions over the course of the show. So yeah, I would probably say it's not nothing. These things are rarely nothing. It's really rare that somebody does that to their social media, especially in the middle of a season. It's one thing for this to happen in the off season when players are negotiating contracts or negotiating extensions or thinking about what their options beyond their current team might be. It's one thing for it to happen then. It's a very, very different thing, I think, for it to be happening now, especially seeing as it is taking place right after the Bucks have fallen completely out of the playoff picture. They are in the play. They aren't even in the play-in picture in the shitty East. The Bucks. Giannis got hurt, missed like a week or two, and in that week or so, Milwaukee just fell off an outright cliff. So, I do think it's something. And look, I kind of feel bad for Bucks fans because they've been dealing with this stuff for a few years now, and I kind of wonder at what point they all just kind of everybody there just kind of says, all right, enough is enough. Can we all just either Giannis, you commit to being here, and or just even soft launch the trade request and go from there. It wouldn't surprise me. Here's what I'll say. Uh I would say in the next few weeks or so, we're on December 2nd. December 15th is when trade season really kind of kicks off. In the next few weeks or so, uh, we're going to get the first update to the report that Shams had, back heading into the season when he said that Giannis had told the Bucks that he was more open to a trade than he has ever been before, and that the only team that he would be interested in playing for would be the New York Knicks. And where that story kind of let off, or was the last we heard about it, was that the Knicks didn't have anything to trade for Giannis and didn't really make a very competitive offer for Giannis in the Bucks' eyes. And obviously, nothing came of that report. Now, part of the issue there is that the Knicks did not have anything to trade for Giannis. They had used all that draft capital to trade for Mikal Bridges, and who I don't even think is trade eligible until a little bit later in the season. So, and then you kind of look at the standings here, and you see that again, Milwaukee is just completely fallen off. But the Knicks nope, not MLB standings. The Dodgers have already won their division. No, but then in NBA standings, you have the Knicks at the 2 seed. So the Knicks kind of have an interesting conundrum on their hands because they're winning at a decent level. They've been okay this year. Point differential of 7.5, which is like fine. That doesn't scream title contender to me. And so like if you're the Knicks, do you break up this most like I would call them above average, not mediocre. They're better than mediocre, but they're certainly a second or a third tier title contender this year. When you consider the West and the teams that they would have to face in the finals coming out of the West. So, like, if you're the Knicks, there should be no hesitancy to break that team up, trade Mikal Bridges for whatever draft haul that you could possibly get for him. Trade either Bridges or OG Anunoby for whatever draft haul you can get for him, or you ask Milwaukee how interested in those players they would or might be. And you try to figure out a Giannis trade this season before you get to the offseason and Giannis potentially opens up the list of teams that he would be open to going to. But yeah, I would say that like, from the Lakers perspective, if a player is interested in the Knicks, there's probably there's probably a good chance that he would be interested in going to the Lakers too, for much of the same reasons. The one differentiating factor between the Knicks and the Lakers is that uh, the Knicks are closer to an airport that has regular trips back to Greece, and if you were to go to LA, that would be a couple thousand miles in the wrong direction. We know how important it is for him to be able to fly back to Greece as frequently as he can, to see his family. And, moving to the West Coast instead of the East Coast changes that. That's why Miami feels like they're in the mix for Giannis too. If that organization can ever kind of re-link up and kind of uh get on the same page as far as their priorities organizationally. So that is one thing that would make the Lakers kind of an underdog in this situation. That's kind of what some of the league kind of scuttlebutt about Giannis might be. Um, but like if you're Giannis and you're leaving a team like Milwaukee, and you're willing to leave that team like Milwaukee, where you are a god, like you are a king in Milwaukee. If you play your entire career in that city and you stay there forever and you remain loyal to them and you one day retire as a player who only played for the Milwaukee Bucks, you own that city, that region, all of that stuff, because you would have done something that basically almost no other player has done in that region, especially from a basketball perspective, given that Kareem eventually asked to be traded to the Knicks or to Washington and then eventually wound up with the Lakers. So yeah, I would, but if you're Giannis and you're willing to leave, Milwaukee, after having seen what leaving Portland, the impact that leaving Portland had on Damian Lillard, he saw that up close, right? Like Damian was not seen in any way anywhere near the same light nationally as he was in Milwaukee compared to when he was still in Portland. And eventually, Damian Lillard made the decision to just go back to Portland. And so if you're Giannis, your top priority, like the only thing that matters to you with your next move is going to be, where do I go that gives me the best chance at winning a championship? And I don't know, man. I don't find like it's either Denver or OKC or the Lakers, in my opinion. Um, if he goes to Denver and Denver figures out a trade, maybe they send Aaron Gordon or something like that to Milwaukee, or they send Jamal Murray out somewhere and get enough draft picks to be able to trade for Giannis. Whatever it would be, if they were able to combine Jokic's skill set uh with Giannis's skill set, the league is just done for the next 3-4 years after that. If he were to go to OKC with if OKC basically calls up Milwaukee and is like, hey, we have the Clippers pick, we have another future Clippers pick, we have, I think they might even get a pick from Utah this year if Utah finishes outside uh if they're better than a top or a bottom 8 team in the league or something like that, like they might get that. Like, so the OKC has all of these draft picks. They could say, here is this combination of contracts and young players and draft picks, and they basically say, here's for Giannis. Now, the reports coming out of OKC is that OKC wouldn't be as interested in doing that. I think they would still kick the tires to see what the price would be. Sam Presti is always going to check in on that kind of a deal. But if OKC does it and they're able to just get Giannis and add him to this ridiculous core that they already have, maybe they send J-Dub to Milwaukee, and J-Dub, who they've been perfectly fine without. If they turn that spot into Giannis, then it's over for everybody. But if you're the Lakers, or if especially if these concerns about athleticism continue with Luka and Austin, let alone with LeBron too. But if they continue and Milwaukee calls and says, "Hey, you're on the list. Giannis is interested in playing with you guys. What would it take?" Or Giannis is on the table. We want Reaves. We want every pick from now till kingdom come. We want Rui. We want expirings. We want Adut Theoro. We want Dalton. We want everything. the Lakers would have some real decision making on their hands. So, um, and now like that might actually be the kind of thing that is easier to do this offseason after Austin gets his raise. But at the same time, like the Lakers have enough expiring money to maybe put. I'm just gonna go really quickly here to um Fanspo just to see like yeah, it's funny. The top two players in that are being put in every trade are Anthony Davis and Giannis Antetokounmpo. So Giannis makes 54.1 million this year. If you put Austin in there, who's making a shade under 14, you put Rui in there, who's making a shade over 18. That gets you to 32. Then you go Gabe and Maxi. And that gets you to 54.6 million. And you're bringing in 54.1 million. Um, you know, that trade is successful. But I would do that. It would certainly be a little bittersweet trading Austin given the season that he's having, but there is no way whatsoever you're trading for Giannis Antetokounmpo and not giving up Austin Reaves. Um, and the fact that they were able to get Luka without giving up Austin Reaves is embarrassing enough for Dallas. I like if another team trades their superstar and the Lakers were able to get that superstar without giving up Austin again, there would be a full blown revolt on throughout the league for it. Um, to those people saying you'll just trade LeBron for him, one, LeBron has a no trade clause and he would not be open to that kind of a trade unless, well, here's what I'll say. LeBron would have to go to the Lakers and say, "Hey, clearly there isn't really a role for me here." Um, but like why would Milwaukee do that? Why would Milwaukee trade for LeBron just to buy him out? Um, they would still want Reaves. Like there's and now you're trading LeBron and Reaves for Giannis and at that point I don't think the Lakers say no, but they would want to hold on to one of those two guys, and the only guy who has any say in whether or not he's held on to is LeBron. So, and if you're LeBron, you get to play on a Giannis Luka team. That gives you a pretty damn good chance at a championship. So, yeah, I would to answer the question, and we got another starred comment here too, right? Ryan Lucas, LA. Giannis to LA is louder and louder, it seems. Is there any truth to this? Yeah, I do think there's some truth to it. I do think it is the kind of thing that we now have to keep on our radars. It is going to factor into the math that the Lakers do eventually at the trade deadline when it comes to whether or not they trade their first round pick this year. For Giannis, we know that he was a disciple of Kobe's. He got one of those Kobe, those Mamba challenges where he challenged Giannis to be the MVP of the league and win a championship. So we know that Kobe means a lot to Giannis, and being a Laker would mean a lot to Giannis. And if you look at some of the offers that some of these other teams can make, Reaves would be easily the best player that could be thrown into any of these trades. So that gets the Lakers closer than anybody. They have a ton of expiring money that would help the Bucks to get out of the cap hell that they have kind of put themselves into. Now they would have to work out a new contract with Austin after the season, and maybe Austin makes the decision that he doesn't want to be there for a rebuild in Milwaukee, and maybe that would complicate the matter. Maybe that's how Austin stays in LA, is if his people basically make it known to Milwaukee, look, you could trade for us. You could include us in this trade, but why would we re-sign long term in Milwaukee? Aside from the fact that Milwaukee would be able to pay him better than anybody wants or could, but that would limit Austin's chances at winning a championship. They're in cap hell because of that maneuver they made with Dame this last offseason. So, I think it's probably likelier that Milwaukee trades for Anthony Davis this season in an attempt to appease Giannis, and then if that doesn't work out, then they look at all of these scenarios again after the season. But Giannis is doing his part in making it known that he isn't particularly happy with how things are going there. And if you're a Laker fan and you want to see Giannis in a Lakers jersey, this is the kind of stuff that you kind of have to be hoping for. I realized I answered a super comment without playing the most important sound on the show, so let me make up for that. That was a close one. All right, so let's go back to the comments here. We had two star comments. Appetizers and Sushi asks, Luka trying to score all 25 points in the first half is selfish. It places his teammates out of rhythm, and the turnovers are just free points. So I think it's possible to be a little overboard. I don't disagree necessarily with the premise here. I don't like the whole Luka scores a shit ton of points in the first quarter trend. That apparently the Lakers are enabling. Like, part of the reason that they have Rui out there is to make it easier for Luka to come out scoring hot. I get it, right? The hope is that you eventually Luka scores to such an extent that the other team has to put two on the ball against Luka, and that would, in theory, open up the game for the rest of the Lakers out there. I get it to a certain extent, and I do think that there are times and there are some teams that works on, but like a team like Phoenix last night was like, yeah, keep on scoring, man. You're hitting fall away jumpers and you're taking up 16 seconds of the shot clock to score 2 points in a possession. Go for it, bud. And they did eventually throw some different looks at him, but it came so much later in the game than usual that I thought the rest of the guys were just completely out of rhythm and never really got into a rhythm. So and again, it kind of goes back to what we talked about a segment ago when I said that I didn't love Luka's response to that, because of course he's saying, well, they aren't doubling me. Maybe I should just keep on scoring. And it's like, yeah, that is something you technically could do, but I would also like for one of your resolutions to that kind of a situation being, hey, I have LeBron on my team. Hey, I have Austin on my team. What if you guys come up and set a screen? What if I go set a screen for you, knowing how much attention I'm going to be drawing all over the place? Like, again, I really didn't like Luka's approach to last night's game. I really didn't like his takeaway from the game. Doesn't mean I hate Luka. To those of you Luka fans who I know, or Luka stans who I know are going to come after me for some of this analysis, that's fine. But to me, the Luka ball is, to me, the least effective Lakers basketball or brand of Lakers basketball that they can play. And to me, if you're gonna do, if you're gonna lean that heavily into Luka ball, then there's no point in having an Austin on the team, and there's no point in having a LeBron on the team. And I don't want those guys to be traded just for the sake of enabling Luka ball. I would like to figure out a way that you keep the Lakers as dynamic as they can possibly be by making it so that what, to me, the best version of Luka ball is when the team that you're playing against can't send extra help to help deal with Luka when he dominates those possessions, because LeBron is already in a is in a rhythm, or Austin already has it going, or Rui already has it going. That's how I would prefer to see it go. But to me, it's just the Luka ball that is supposed to set up the rest of it's like the trickle down economics thing. It's like that has never worked anywhere. So I don't see that as a feasible approach for the Lakers here. I would like to see more guys involved early on. I would like to see a more balanced roster to help make it so that you get enough stops that you can get out and run. Like I looked it up last night. The Lakers score it's only like 4 more points a game in transition in wins versus in losses. That struck me as a little surprising, but when you consider how little the Lakers run, whether they win or lose, those 4 points, that's like, that's 2 extra possessions that you don't have to rely on your half court offense. And it's just like, you have guys like Laravia, you have guys like Rui, you have guys like Austin who you have somebody like LeBron who when he's out in the open court is just a freight train. So I would just like to see, the Lakers get back to a more dynamic approach that isn't so predicated on Luka being Luka. Not saying you want to rid yourself of that completely. He is one of the best offensive players in the sport. One of the best like the first however many seasons of his career so far rank up there with the first 5 seasons any player has ever had offensively. So it would be stupid to just kind of completely rid yourself of Luka Ball. I'm just asking for a little bit more balance, and I think that's what appetizers and sushi is asking for here too. Let's see. Some of you guys are really, really angry. Yeah. Trade Luka then. That's never gonna happen. You guys, this is unbelievable. Hey man, I think that Luka should involve LeBron. This is the same bullshit that got me blocked by Peter Vesey. When I said, like, hey, Kobe, you have Powell on your team now. You should pass a little bit more to that guy over there. And Peter Vesey was like, how dare you block? Like, it's just so stupid. Just listen to yourself. I think my point is, I think the Lakers should involve LeBron James in their offense. You hear that? Does that not sound reasonable? Hey, man, Austin almost had a 50-point triple-double this season. And every time he is asked to carry more burden of the offense, he and the offense looks better. Maybe they should involve him a little bit more. What? What is this sorcery? What is this witchcraft? You monster. All right. Wannabe GM's podcast. Any truth to Buha saying if LA were to trade for a lesser known guy like Akai due to politics, Rui would still start and the 5th guy would need to have cachet? Well, for one thing, I can ask Jovan about that tonight. We're going to be recording an episode of the Great Western Forum here this evening that will run tomorrow. Yeah, like politics matter. Rui is in a contract. Like the guy, if they were to trade for a 5th starter, it would have to be a Dylan Brooks. It would have to be a Herb Jones. It would have to be an Andrew Wiggins, somebody that the Lakers see as a shot in the arm right now and a part of their a bigger part of their organization moving forward than Rui would be. So yeah, like they aren't gonna, because otherwise, like the fact that Rui is starting over Smart speaks to this theory from Jovan too, right? Like the Lakers, there's the numbers are insanely loud. They are really, really loud. And the basketball itself, all like the eye test backs up the really loud numbers. So if I am aware of these numbers, if Jovan is aware of these numbers, if Pete and Darius and the Cambros and Tim and Raj and everybody else covering this team are aware of the numbers and the caliber of basketball that the Lakers are playing here, you can bet your ass that the Lakers are also aware of it. So it's just a matter of like having the right guy available to start in that spot. And then hoping that making that move whenever they make that move actually works out. Because if you make that move and it doesn't work out, now you return to Rui and you're like, hey, bud, this is awkward, but you think you could start? Like it's just sorry for dicking you around with in a contract here. Can you stay committed to us? Oh, by the way, ignore the trade rumors that are certainly going to mount the longer that these numbers remain the same. Like, um, and now look, here's the thing though. Even while I say that, and even if I say it in a sarcastic manner, if you're Rui, you can't afford to be too much of a headache in this spot because you're in a winning situation. You're in a, you know, you're on a very good team. This organization has basically helped resuscitate your career. If you repay them for all of that by sulking when they ask you to go to the bench, then that's a reputation that follows you to your next team's plural. You know what I mean? Like if you're Rui and you basically mope your way out of the Lakers organization because they asked you to go to the bench with the numbers being as loud as they are. If you whine your way out of that situation and, go to a different team, like, yeah, you might start somewhere else, but it won't be for a good team. Ask Kuz how that went, where Kuz never like demanded and he never came close to demanding a trade out of LA, but he was kind of ready to spread his wings a little bit and see what he could do with a larger role in the offense. Um, and then see what happened. He got to Washington, he got that larger role in the offense, and it turns out an offense that features a lot more coups than Anthony Davis and LeBron James, that offense and that team is probably going to stink. And they did. Washington was bad. So like Rui could like to see how things go on a team that he starts and maybe he gets more shots and stuff like that. Um, but it also might be that, with the extra opportunities, the efficiency takes a dip, the defense doesn't improve. And now all of a sudden, a player who is now viewed as a top 3 or 4 player in uh, that team that guy plays for isn't going to be very good. So, if you're Rui, no chance. I don't think that Rui is watching or his people are watching right now. But if Rui wants to stick around here and I know he likes being a Laker. If Rui wants to continue being a Laker and he wants the Lakers to prioritize keeping him a Laker, then the one thing he cannot do is whine and mope if and when they ask him to go to the bench, because these numbers, if they continue, have been so loud. So, yeah, if it is, Okai, or I would like to know how to say his name, but if it's that kind of a player, if it's a Keon Ellis, or if it's like whoever they bring in, that player is going to have some cachet to be able to start over Rui. But at the end of the day, too, it's like, uh, you know, the Lakers also can't afford to continue to bleed points at the beginnings of these games because they want to massage Rui's ego. Next question here comes from Logan Misiak. Maybe LeBron should play instead of laughing with the opposite team during a live play. Absolutely pathetic. Luka playing his tail off and he laughs. I mean, look, I'll say this. I didn't like how LeBron played last night either. I thought he floated way too much. And here's my thing is like, the hope was with Luka carrying more of the burden offensively and with Austin and Luka carrying more of the offensive burden. The hope was that like LeBron would be able to be better defensively, like basically use some of the energy resources he was using offensively and reallocate them to the defensive side of the ball. But instead, all we got is like he's floating on offense and he's kind of floating around on defense. Like there were a few possessions last night where, and I think Phoenix was doing this on purpose, where they would swing the ball or they would move the ball to one side of the court where LeBron would be the backside of the defense. And then they would just kind of cut in front of LeBron, knowing that he wasn't going to tag any rollers or do anything like that. So, like, I thought last night was one of the worst LeBron games uh of his tenure, like full stop. Like I thought that was a top 5 or a bottom 5 LeBron as a Laker game. But I would like to see that, I would like to see him find other ways to impact the game. But like I said earlier, I would like to see the Lakers get him more involved than he was last night. I don't like that they're basically just having him stand in the corner and basically turn him into Rui when Rui isn't out there. Um that's just a complete waste of LeBron's talents, especially against a team where like he was being guarded oftentimes by a smaller defender. Put him in the post. Let him be a fulcrum. Let Luka kind of float around him and let Austin kind of float around him and put him on a spot on the court where it takes one quick dribble to get to the rim and apply that pressure to the defense that way. Um, I would like to see, I would like to see LeBron. I don't even know what he finished with shots wise last night. Go back one game. Shots wise, I think he attempted, yeah, he was 3 of 10 from the field. Like I just I would like to see LeBron a little bit more active on either side of the game. And look, part of the thing is, basketball is this very rhythmic sport, and for LeBron to go from being, having his hands on the ball at all times, like this is also an adjustment period as well. So we could say, like, I see the comment here from Westwood that LeBron sent a message last night. This is what it looks like when I'm not involved in the offense. I don't think it's necessarily that serious. I don't think it's that um ugly. I think it's more that LeBron is used to playing basketball a certain way, and it tends to be with the basketball. And he is trying to acclimate his body to playing basketball now at this age. And he is also trying to figure out how to play on a team where he doesn't have the basketball in his hands as often as he does. Like there were moments last night where the ball rotated over to him and it was a clear catch and shoot spot, and he wasn't quite as ready to pull the trigger on that stuff. And that to me is a reps thing, right? It's a reps and a rhythm thing, and it's a confidence thing. So I don't think last night is indicative of this larger problem. I don't think it was LeBron sending any kind of a message. But one thing I will say though is that, like, one of the ways that this was, or I would even go so far as to say is like the only way that this is going to work is if LeBron takes some of the energy he used to expend on the offensive side and uses more of that on the defensive side. And that allows the Lakers to be a little bit more athletic and a little bit more, play with more force defensively. Like that's what they have to do if this is going to work. And if he isn't capable of doing that, then the math kind of changes on what the Lakers are capable of this year. So we'll see what that kind of looks like moving forward. But yeah, I mean, look, I'm also, by the way, I don't want to like completely overreact to one game. Um, Especially this early in the season. That was their 20th game of the year. That was LeBron's what, 4th or 5th game of the year? Like these things take time, and this is a completely new concept to LeBron, basically being asked to be a 3 and D wing. Um that's a very difficult thing. Like I think it's a lot harder to scale down than scale up to the extent that LeBron is being asked to scale down. So that was always going to take time. And the time that they were hoping that he could have used to get a little bit better at this a little bit sooner in the season was during training camp and preseason and in the earlier parts of the season, but he was hurt. So they couldn't do that. So now you're playing catch up as he's trying to figure that out. And this is what that looks like. This is a bumpy process, and progress isn't linear. And we'll just see how long it takes if he ever fully acclimates himself to the kind of basketball that the Lakers need him to play. Let's see. I'm going to scan through Twitter one more time. I've already answered some of these. Good. So we're good. All right. I am going to go ahead and end it here. Little man is waking up from his nap, and I have to get back to prepping dinner. So, look, the plan tonight is to record a Great Western Forum with Pete and with Jovan and a couple of guests. That will not be live. That'll be recorded and then released on the YouTube page probably tomorrow late morning, be my guess. And then it will be available in podcast form Thursday morning. And then Thursday, the Lakers play a game. Raj will be here in the lounge for that one. And then we will see what the rest of the week looks like from there. But, Friday, I'm flying out to El Paso, so no show on Friday. Although they played the Celtics, so if the Lakers win, maybe I'll bring my laptop and my mic and stuff like that, just in case the Lakers, and hopefully they beat the Celtics and we can hop on and we can have a little bit of fun at the Celtics expense. But I will be visiting my family in El Paso. Things sometimes get a little rowdy out there with my family there in El Paso. And hey, maybe that just means I'll get a little extra reckless laughing at the Celtics if the Lakers win. But until then, and until the next time you guys hear from me, I am Anthony Irwin saying have a great rest of your day. Make somebody, hold on. Got another super comment. Dr. Funkology, 9 turnovers. JJ saving from himself, freezing your team out and making the Suns comfy and no need to think. War on to the next one. Yeah, that's like the turnovers are a problem. Not keeping guys in a rhythm, I thought was a somehow bigger problem than the turnovers. Like the turnovers compounded the original problem to me. And the Lakers and Luka just need to find a better sense of balance moving forward. But they have, for the most part, this season. For some reason, it's the weirdest thing. You play against these teams that pressure the ball. The way that you counteract pressure is by moving the basketball. And yet, for some reason, when the Lakers play against some of these teams that pressure the ball, they tend to assume the fetal position with the ball, and the ball stops moving, the players stop moving, and the open shots stop getting created. And that's a weird, bad habit that the Lakers desperately need to break. So I think Luka is a big part of that. I think Austin is a big part of that. I think LeBron is a big part of that. I think JJ Redick is a big big part of that. And they need to get a better handle of that balance and execute that balance against some of these more imposing defenses that have given them problems so far this season. All right. That is going to do it here for this episode of the Lakers Lounge Podcast. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Thank you, everybody, for your questions and your comments and the super chats. Really, really appreciate all of those. Avery will get some donuts as a result of all of that support. And then, until tonight, when I get together with the guys and get that episode out for you guys tomorrow, have a great rest of your days. Make somebody else's, and I will talk to you when I talk to you. Have a good one, everybody.